What is up, guys? It is Joe. We are back. We're talking about the Kansas State Wildcats. Back to the transfer portal. It's the giving season, dare I say, about the basketball transfer portal. It's the time where we get to speculate over who's going to end up wearing lavender here in the near future. And we've got three different players we want to talk about today, and I will intend to do that here in a sec. Let me say before we get into things real quick, first of all, a quick thank you. Thank you guys for all the support in the last video talking to Richard Linton. I know it was kind of an edgy topic a little bit, so I appreciate all the positive response and feedback I got on that. Thank you all for commenting and voicing your opinion. I appreciate that. Second thing, as we continue to grow the channel, because I wanted to mention this earlier, at 1,000 subs, if you were around for that, I gave away a lavender quarter zip, a lavender K-State quarter zip, and it was a random commenter, and we put in, I think there's about 150 people that entered. It's really cool. I'm going to do the same thing at 2,000 subs. So as we continue to climb, if you're interested in getting your hands on a lavender quarter zip, be sure and consider subscribing to this channel. And stay tuned as we do get closer, because that, as it happens, it'll get a little bit easier to explain the details. But I just wanted to put that out there, so be sure and consider subscribing if you like the content, if you like K-State athletics, because we've got a ton of content coming on the portal. We've got football things coming around the corner. Spring football is here. It's going to be awesome, and you don't want to miss it. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Also, super quick shout out. I will get into it in a second. I promise, don't leave yet. My buddy Cole Carmody has a YouTube channel covering K-State athletics, covering the Royals a little bit. He works for Go PowerCat, does a great job. I will link his channel in the description. He's got some great K-State stuff over there, talking about spring football, talking about some different things going on in the community. Cole knows ball, plain and simple. He's a ball knower. I will definitely link his stuff in the description of this, because if you're like me, you want to check out every bit of K-State content you can. I consume it at alarming rates, actually. It's become my entire feed. But if you want one more person to add to that pie, consider checking out Cole's channel. Let's start here. Today is an all big episode. We got three bigs. Who doesn't love the bigs in college football? Let's talk about some big men on the low block in today's episode. You already saw the guy in the thumbnail. It is Oklahoma State's Brandon Garrison. Now, this is an interesting situation. It is. Brandon Garrison entered the portal, and the thing that was unique about him, outside of the fact that he's coming from the Big 12 and has Big 12 experience already, is that he entered with the idea of basically, do not contact me. Don't reach out to me. Don't offer me. Don't do whatever. Just leave me be. So that immediately tells you one thing. It might tell you a couple of things, but the one thing it tells you is that he knows where he wants to go, or at least has front runners in his mind. He's at least got 2 to 3 teams that he's like, this is where I'm considering. Nobody else. I don't want to waste your time. Eastern Carolina, don't reach out to me. GCU, don't reach out to me. Shout out GCU one time in the tournament. I don't know if they're winning the game right now. They're playing right now as we speak. But he's not wasting any time. So he's saying, don't contact me. I know where I want to go. K-State, whether that fits the bill or not at the time, is one of the teams that has contacted him. So let's bring up the list of different teams that have reached out to Brandon Garrison, and then I'll read you some stats and stuff like that. So Garrison is in the portal now. These are the teams he's heard from, and you'll recognize a lot of them. I mean, you'll recognize all of them. That was a stupid thing to say. OSU, just says OSU. Don't know if that's Oklahoma State recruiting him back or if that's Ohio State. Probably Oklahoma State recruiting him back. Oklahoma, LSU, Texas Tech, Texas, Kansas, Kansas State, SMU, Houston, Florida, Xavier, Georgia, Illinois. Not going to count all that up. That's probably 10 or 12 teams, 15 teams. But if you're counting at home, that is, I guess Oklahoma's not a Big 12 team in this case. Neither is Texas. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 Big 12 teams off the top of the head. That's Kansas, Kansas State, Houston, and Texas Tech. So it is going to be a gauntlet for Brandon Garrison. I'm not going to lie. I already kind of placed my prediction on this one to end up either at Houston or at Kansas. Both those teams were in his final cut-down list when it became those two or Oklahoma State. Garrison's a stud, man. He's a top prospect kid that came out in the last year's class and was really one of the bright spots for Oklahoma State. I know there wasn't a ton of stuff to talk about from OSU. They ended up firing Mike Boynton, but Brandon Garrison in his freshman season was impressive. 7.5 points per game, 5.3 rebounds. He's a super athletic guy. He's got a nice finishing package on the low block, and he's already got Big 12 experience. That's something you can't really account for. So an entire season of Big 12 basketball under your belt, that's something you roll with. So the other thing I wanted to mention about Garrison that I think is a good thing, Hunter Dickinson quoted him. Hunter Dickinson says a lot of stuff, positive, negative, whatever. He talked about Brandon Garrison after that Oklahoma State game and said this is going to be one of the best bigs for the next couple of years in the Big 12. Obviously, there's a chance he doesn't end up back in the Big 12, but I kind of have a hard time believing that. I think Brandon Garrison will end up either at Houston or Kansas, but for the sake of it, K-State has talked to him. They've reached out to him, so there is a chance. I don't want to write it off and say there's no chance. Next person, Clifford Omoruyi. Played at Rutgers. He's a stud. He's an athletic specimen. This dude is gigantic, 6'11". He's strong. He's really kind of all three of these guys have this ability to be just like a physical mismatch, an athletic mismatch on the low block. All three of these guys are actually weirdly similar players for the sake of it. Sometimes in bigs you get kind of the big fundamental Will McNair type guy. Then you also get the long athletic, athletic Jarrell Colbert type guy. You get a little bit of both. This list is the big physical type of guy. Obviously, we know what type of player Brandon Garrison is. They all fit that role. Clifford Omoruyi at Rutgers, he averaged 10.4 points and 8.3 rebounds a game. He is super athletic. I mean, that's going to be a comparison for all three of these guys. He's active on defense that I think is, he's got the best defense of the three guys on this list, I would say. The third one I'll talk about is pretty solid on D as well. But he reminds me a lot of how Houston's bigs play, of J1 Roberts and Javier Francis. I forget their other bigs off the top of my head, but on the pick and rolls, he is out there immediately, like sprinting to the point of attack. He's not getting left off. He's not waiting to see what the guard does. He's out there early. That could just be Rutgers' scheme, but he has the explosiveness to get up the court, which I like. K-State is one of many teams that reached out to Cliff. I don't know if it's a situation where we have much to stand on in any of these conversations, but it is something I wanted to report because I thought it was interesting. This is the long list we have here, and this is everybody that he's heard from. So obviously some teams like Cal, LMU, these guys aren't going to be in the conversation. So some of these, it's a better sign than what we see with Garrison, where it's like 7 Big 12 teams and then other teams that have tons of NIL. This is a different situation. So Clifford has heard from UConn, obviously a bad example of what I was just saying, but UConn, St. John's, Alabama, Oregon, USC, Auburn, Villanova, Kansas State, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia Tech, Ole Miss, stay with me, Miami, LSU, Georgetown, Mississippi State, Oregon State, LMU, UCLA, Cal, and DePaul. Now, cut out half that list. Honestly, cut out 18 of those teams. A lot of times guys will enter, and there's kind of the same people that are reaching out with massive NIL budgets. They play usually in the SEC, or there's someone that's, just known to reach out on everybody. Alabama's a good example. Arkansas is a good example. So I don't know what that entails. Obviously, the kid played at Rutgers, so you have that kind of New York area experience. Unless I'm completely mistaken, and Rutgers is like in Illinois, and I'm just awful. But I think it's kind of New York area. But Kansas State has poked around. I don't know if we're going to the point where we're just poking around on everybody. That could be the case, so that's partially something to mention. But I think one thing that's interesting, and I should have mentioned this earlier in the video, are departures in the portal. And since we've last talked, we've obviously lost Cam Carter. He's my guy. Sad to see C5 move on, but it sounds like a fresh start's going to be, it's going to be what's best. So I don't want to, I'm not going to spend too much time on that one. Cam was a good dude. I'll still root for him. But Cam Carter leaves in the portal, and I'm disappointed about that. But it's something in college basketball that happens. Dorian Finister didn't have the minutes you'd expect, or he wanted, so he's in the portal as well. Those at the moment are the only 2 dudes that have hit the portal. When you're seeing this video, we could have more, so don't clown me if there's like 8 dudes in the portal out of nowhere. That's, at the moment, we're up-to-date information, baby. So Cam and Dorian are both in the portal, and the biggest thing is that none of these 3 guys really fill those roles yet, so I don't really know what the fit's like entirely. Obviously, if you're recruiting guards, it's going to be different than recruiting bigs. So it's kind of a bad time for me to post this, but it is what it is. K-State's reached out to 3 bigs, so we got to talk about that. It doesn't really fit our needs for the team as of right this second, but obviously Will McNair is graduating. You've got question marks regarding David Gasson. Is he coming back? You don't know what the 5 position is going to look like next year. Obviously, Dave played more of the 4 than the 5, but it is something to keep in mind, so there's that. All in all, I kind of forgot where I was going with that. I apologize. Let's talk about the third guy, because Clifford Omoruyi would be a solid player. I'd really enjoy to have him at K-State, but I don't know what the situation here is. The third person is the one that I feel most confident about, are the ground that we stand on with him, even though there's probably more teams that have reached out to this player. Terrance Reed from Michigan. This is the third guy we've contacted that I've seen. He's averaging 9 points a game and 7.2 rebounds. He's similar to the other 2 in the sense that they're all athletic. They can all defend. They all work great on the low block. He's got a couple of differences in his game that stand out a little bit more than Garrison and Omoruyi do. He is one that is athletic enough to the point where it's like, this is a physical presence that you have to plan for on the scouting report on a nightly basis. And one thing that I've really thought about a little bit different is like, Quan is a good example. So I should mention Naquan Tomlin, but by the time Quan was done with K-State, or, this past season that he didn't get to play, he was kind of set in as a wing. He wasn't viewed as a 4 or 5 per se in this, this offense. So Naquan Tomlin doesn't really count in this sense. I would like to have a set of multiple bigs that you have to plan for. Like with Kansas State, I feel like as a program, and we've had some good bigs in the past, I don't want to just move past it, we really rely on solid guard play to get us where we want to go. And obviously you need good guards in college basketball. It is what it is to go deep in the tournament. But I would really like to get to a point where we have 2 bigs that regardless of how the guards around them are playing, they're going to show up, they're going to defend, they're going to attack the boards, and they're going to get theirs in the low block. Not necessarily guys that need to, play back to the basket all the time, but like Jerome Colbert, after another year of development, he fits that category of guy that's athletic. He can do his thing. He's 6'11". He's quick, explosive. He can do his own thing. He doesn't necessarily need a guy to put up 18 points from the guard position for us to win. You can have that kind of Jamal Shead Houston performance where it's like, okay, I can have 10 points, 7 assists, 5 boards. I don't need to put up 19, 20 points a game to win to keep us close in certain games. And obviously every game calls for something different, but I would really like to see Kansas State get to a point where they have multiple bigs that are just game record. Not even game records like they have to take over the game, but guys that affect the game consistently. Someone that, okay, if we don't plan for them, they're going to get us, and that's okay. The 5-out offense, we'll talk about it as, it's going to depend on which guys we get in, but I like the idea of having a guy like Jerome Colbert, and even if they slid him to the 4, I think that'd be pretty sick, or they kind of condition him a little bit more into that 4 role and then bring in another physically imposing guy at the 5. That's a damn scary lineup. Obviously, right now, Art is still with K-State, so he's the 4, but if there was a big-bodied lineup where you could kind of go, based off what we know right now, you can kind of go Dave Castillo or Dade Ames at the 1 and then flip those 2 either way, interchangeable 1 and 2. You toss Arthur Klum at the 3. If he's still here, the portal happens. We'll talk about that. The NBA is probably an option for Art as well. It is an option for Art. We'll see which way he goes. And then you have Jarrell at the 4 and just a dominant big at the 5 that's in that same 6'11" category. That's a damn scary lineup. I'd love to see that. But Terrance Reed, back to the topic at hand, I apologize. He's a former K-State target from Bruce Weber in the Bruce Weber era. He's got a little bit of a higher turnover rate than the 2, but it's not anything massively different. And he does have the ability to step out and shoot the 3. So that's something you like there. Out of this list, I'd be thrilled with any of the 3. I'll be 100% honest with you. Usually with these videos, it's like, oh, I'd like this guy better, this guy better, this guy better. If you land any of the 3, you're in damn good spot. These are damn good additions. But it's going to be interesting to see how we handle it because recruiting this offseason is going to be up in the air. Once Cam left, I think it kind of solidified to me of like every position's open. Every position on the board, you're going to recruit, you're going to hit hard. I don't know if that includes guys like Kaluma hitting the portal, if that doesn't include guys like Kaluma hitting the portal. It'll be interesting to see. I would love to see Art back for another season, but I think there's going to be a lot of different dudes we talk to over the next couple of weeks. But this is just to keep you informed on the bigs, the guys we're talking to, the big boys. So Brandon Garrison from Oklahoma State, would love to have him. He's a great opportunity. He's a young kid, but he's got so much experience already out of his first year at Oklahoma State. Clifford Omoruyi, I think he's going to probably end up somewhere in the SEC or somewhere paying a chunk of money, more than likely. I think his game kind of reminds me of those athletic bigs for like an Alabama team. And then Terrance Reed from Michigan, we'll see. He's got a ton of dudes interested in him, well, the same way the other dudes do. But it'll be a good conversation to have. But I just wanted to make this video today to talk about that and keep the ball rolling. With the transfer portal, it's like if you don't make a video, you're 3 days late. If you miss the cutoff to make a video and talk about a certain player, that player's gone the next opportunity you have. So you really don't want to be behind on these things. So I wanted to make a video to talk about that, guys. But I appreciate each and every one of you watching. I hope you're all doing well. If you have any guys to check out in the portal that you're interested in, you have any questions, be sure and toss them in the comment section, and I will definitely look into them and get back to you as soon as I can. But I appreciate each and every one of you watching. Once again, thank you for all the support. If you want to subscribe, be sure and do that. It does help us out, and that could potentially end up with you getting your hands on a lavender quarter zip. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I will talk to you later.